Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back to my channel, Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you guys this evening for me. Okay, so I just would like to share a couple of points relating to the ascendant from esoteric astrology. And just some things to pay attention to with regards to transits and progressions. So in esoteric astrology, just very briefly, the ascendant is the vehicle of the soul. It represents the soul. Now, it's very easy to understand that when you think about the fact that the ascendant is the component of your birth chart that is totally time dependent. So that shows us very clearly that that is when the soul is descending into the body and about to be born. So if you don't have a time of birth, you can still look at, the location of all the other planets in the chart. The only one that may not be correct would be the moon, because the moon is the fastest moving body in terms of the planets. But the ascendant is 100% dependent on accurate time of birth. That's the first thing. So in esoteric astrology, the basic premise is that our lives are led from the soul. However, the personality is there just as strong. So the key point with esoteric astrology and the soul and personality is the journey, the path that we take with each incarnation, where we are basically attempting to integrate the soul and the personality together. And it is pretty typical that a lot of people don't necessarily have the soul and the personality integrated and working together. And I guess the way that's normally characterized is by a person's life who is very ego-based, personality-based, personality-driven. In other words, the importance and priority in the person's life is very much the focus of the external world. And I'm not making a judgment, I'm just stating the obvious. But there are certain people on a particular initiation path in any one incarnation that feel a strong sense of really trying to understand how to integrate the soul and the personality. So there's this sense of harmony and not a sense of discord. So the point of this video really is actually about, I just wanted to share with you guys that when you're looking at the ascendant of your birth chart, quite apart from understanding it from an esoteric level, so therefore the traditional rulership that we have in modern exoteric astrology, which is the moon rules Cancer, the sun rules Leo, Mercury rules Virgo, Venus rules Libra, Mars rules Scorpio, and so on and so forth. In esoteric astrology, the rulerships do change somewhat. So I will post a link below for a website that you can go to explore this further, but I will also just share with you guys the rulership of the esoteric ascendant. So let's start with that, actually, and then there's a couple of points that I just want to raise about the ascendant. So, okay, where am I? Just bear with me. All right, so how about I go about it in this way? So there are 7 rays in esoteric astrology, okay, and the rays that I specifically work with are the soul ray and the personality ray. There are other rays, such as the astral ray, and some others as well. But the main two that I pay a lot of attention to, I pay attention to the astral ray as well, because it can say a lot about a person's emotional body, depending on what ray they have as their astral ray. That can say very much about the person's emotional life, emotional body, and whether they are, very resilient or extremely sensitive, etc. Ray 1, which is an incredibly intense and powerful ray, is ruled by Pluto and Vulcan. Now, Vulcan is something you may have not heard of. Vulcan is situated very close to the sun for every single human being. So that element of Vulcan is not unique. But when you see Vulcan placed on an angle of the chart, or at the midpoint of the ascendant and the midheaven, which I've done a video on that, then Vulcan seems to take a greater sort of priority in terms of his message. And Vulcan, in short, is the alchemist. It's the inner alchemy, the inner work that we do on our soul, basically. So you see, Vulcan actually has very powerful meaning, very beautiful. But it's not, when I say beautiful, it's not Venus, Neptune. It's more Pluto, Mars energy. So it's like that, the really intense work that we do in the inner planes and the inner dimensions of our existence and our being. So Ray 1 is ruled by Vulcan and Pluto and connects to the sign of Capricorn, Aries, and Leo. So if you had Capricorn rising, Aries rising, or Leo rising, you wouldn't just, what I'm suggesting is you can look at additional levels of meanings to your ascendant by looking at the esoteric ruler, right? So if you had Capricorn rising, you would automatically assume, and correctly so, that Saturn is the ruler, right, to your ascendant. And it is, absolutely. But from an esoteric level, your Capricorn ascendant actually connects to Vulcan and Pluto. If you had Aries rising, it's the same thing. Your ascendant would be ruled by Mars from an exoteric level, but from an esoteric level, it would be ruled by Vulcan and Pluto. And Leo is ruled by the sun. So if you had Leo rising, the sun rules your ascendant, but in esoteric astrology, it's Vulcan and Pluto. So, and I'll run through the rest of them, and then I'll just make a couple of final points that I want to make. So, ray number 2, by the way, ray number 1, keyword is will or willpower, will force, willpower, basically. Ray of willpower, essentially. It's a very, very intense ray. And if you have that on the personality or the soul level, there's an incredible depth and intensity to who you are and your life, really, overall. Ray number 2 is love wisdom. And ray number 2 is a very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ray. It's the ray that just loves everyone and everything. It is the ray that wants to include everything and everyone. So it's that universal love, basically. So personality ray number 2 people, for instance, could be on an. Okay, let me just backtrack. The rays, which are 1 to 7, operate very differently from a personality level and a soul level. Okay, so if you have a ray 2 personality, then that's going to operate very differently to a ray 2 soul. Okay, the personality, when it takes on any of these rays, it has a lot of conflicting dimensions that are expressed through the ray, simply because the personality is so egocentric, it's based on one's own personal desires, and it's the personality just ultimately seeks pleasure. The personality will do everything to avoid pain, right? So when you have any of the 7 rays at the personality level, there's you need to understand how that ray is expressed on a personality level, because on a soul level, the rays are expressed differently as well. And the combinations that you get, so you might have for example, I have a ray 1 personality, which is Vulcan Pluto, and that really does describe me. On a personality level, I have a very intense personality, to put it very simply, and Pluto is very prominent in my chart because it aspects just about everything in my chart. So from that external personality level, my life is very Plutonian in a lot of ways. My soul ray, however, is number 2, so it's love wisdom, which is all the work that I'm doing with this astrology, sharing it with you guys as well, and many other components of my life. But there would be a conflict, an inherent sort of conflict between 1 and 2 based on the personality and the soul, because the soul has very different intentions to the personality. And that can be understood better when you go into greater depth and detail of the various combinations that one can have in terms of their soul ray and their personality ray. There's volumes and volumes on this particular level of astrology. So this is really just an introduction to get you thinking. First of all, get you thinking about the fact that your ascendant is not only ruled by the traditional ruler that you normally work with. If you step up and go into the esoteric realm, then you are potentially working with a different ruler to your ascendant. And I say potentially because some of the signs have the same rulership as exoteric astrology, only a few though, and you'll see that as I continue. So ray number 2, which is love wisdom, is ruled by Jupiter and the Sun. And the signs that are connected to ray number 2 and are ruled by Jupiter and the Sun are Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces. So if you had Gemini rising, then your ascendant from an esoteric level is ruled by the Sun and Jupiter. If you had Virgo rising, the same. If you had Pisces rising, the same. Something seems amiss there. Just bear with me because I'm seeing something that is not making sense to me. And there's got to be a reason for it, so I need to investigate it. I don't think Ray 2 belongs to those signs. It looks like there is an error here. So disregard that comment while I just try and find what I'm looking for. Hope you guys are not in a hurry. You know, my videos are not really short. Okay, let me just see. Okay, let me just pause. I'll be right back. Okay, no, I was correct on that, so do not disregard that comment. That is 100% correct. So ray number 2, love wisdom, ruled by Jupiter and the Sun. Connect to the signs Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Aquarius. That's what I was missing, okay? So add the sign of Aquarius in there too. So if you have Gemini or Virgo ascendant, you're naturally going to look at Mercury as your ruler, right? If you have Pisces, you'll go to Jupiter or Neptune or both. And if you have Aquarius, you'll go to Uranus or Saturn or both. But what I'm saying is that you still keep, you still keep that understanding of those rulerships, of the traditional exoteric rulerships. But if you want to understand deeper components of what's happening with your chart from an esoteric soul level and what's happening with the ascendant, your soul, then you need to associate these rulerships. And I'll explain a little bit more about why that is the case in terms of transits and so forth in a moment. So ray number 3 is ray of active intelligence. And it's basically mental illumination, just to put it very simply. That's the key word or phrase for ray number 3. So very mentally, very active, very intelligent ray, that one. So if you have that on the personality or the soul, that's going to manifest differently at the personality level and at the soul level. The rulers to ray number 3 are the Earth and Saturn. So in esoteric astrology, the Earth is used in the same way we use the other planets, okay, which is a little bit weird, I guess, if you've never heard that before, but it's very normal in esoteric astrology. And it's very interesting that it's Earth and Saturn, because Saturn rules the Earth, right? It rules this 3D dimension. So it's interesting. So the signs associated with ray number 3 are Cancer, Libra, Virgo. So if you have Cancer ascendant, you'll normally go to the moon. If you have Libra, you'll go to Venus. If you have Capricorn, you'll go to Saturn. But in this case, the implication is that you would also look at what Saturn is doing as well in the chart, because it's connected to your ascendant through esoteric astrology. Therefore, it's speaking through your soul in some kind of way. Ray number 4 is known as harmony through conflict. And it sounds like a bit of a conundrum, harmony through conflict. But it's a very, very powerful ray. They're all very powerful anyway. But ray number 4 is also the artist. It's this magnificent creative ability and creative juice. It's the divine artist. And the rulership of the planets that are associated with ray 4 are Mercury and the moon. And the signs are Taurus, Scorpio, and Sag. All right. So if you had Taurus ascendant, Scorpio ascendant, or Sagittarius ascendant, then you would add to your ascendant as being ruled by Mercury and the moon from an esoteric level, from a soul level. Okay. Ray number 5 is ray of concrete science knowledge. It's the vehicle of expression for the ideas of the mind of God. Okay, just bear with me. Ray number 5. So the ruling planet for ray 5 is Venus. Okay. And the signs are Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. So if you have Leo, Sag, or Aquarius rising, you would normally look to the traditional rulers, but from an esoteric perspective, you can also look at Venus, okay, and examine. So whatever rulership you're looking at, whether it's the exoteric level or the esoteric level, whatever rulership you are looking at, what you are looking at is the condition of that planet in your birth chart, where it's located, what aspects does it have? Does it have an aspect to your ascendant? Is it in a sign of rulership or exaltation, detriment or fall? In other words, is it dignified or debilitated? Those sorts of things. Ray number 6, probably one of the most difficult ones. Ray 1 and Ray 6 and Ray 4 tend to be the 3 more difficult ones out of all the 7. So ray number 6 is devotion and idealism, and it sounds lovely. And the key phrase is devotion and idealism is because the ruling planet is Neptune, but the other ruling planet is Mars. So ray number 6, I'm just going to give a couple of examples. So I'm going to give a very extreme example just to demonstrate the severity of when this goes wrong, really how dark it can be. So because it's devotion and idealism, and it's Mars Neptune, this is why Mars Neptune aspects can be very, very very challenging in the birth chart, depending on who the person is that has that aspect, and what their level of consciousness is and what their intentions are in terms of how they want to use that energy, because that energy can be used in quite horrific ways. So the Mars Neptune devotion idealism can be the suicide bombers, the people who perform those sorts of violent acts against innocent people, essentially, because they are so what's the word? I've just forgotten the word that I wanted to use. It was a very specific word, but we're talking about people who are somewhat delusional, right? And have such a strong devotion and sense of idealism of what they think perhaps how the world needs to look or appear or be in order for it to be a better place. So therefore, they are compelled to annihilate certain people through because of their religious beliefs and so on and so forth, right? You get my gist, because you're all pretty aware of what's going on in the world, I'm sure. So that's the Mars Neptune operating at that really dark level, which is it's a misdirected devotion, okay? Because in my opinion, at least, just very simply, source or the divine, for a start, doesn't it doesn't plant seeds in our mind that cause us to believe or think that we need to kill or harm. There's all sorts of reasons why people have those sorts of desires or intentions, and it's got nothing to do with God or the divine. But people do project their religious beliefs onto some invisible man sitting behind a cloud. And, when things are going well, they praise this man behind the clouds. And when things are going to shit, they criticize him, because it's usually a male gender that people associate God with. But if we understand things from a far more conscious level, then the understanding would be that Source doesn't, first of all, even have a gender, and he's not or she's not, in a physical body, sitting up there in heaven in some, luxurious chair, making these judgments upon us and so forth. That's a man-made perspective. So, ray number 6. That's the extreme example, and I just wanted to throw that in there just to let you know how extreme it can be. When it's not operating at that extreme, violent, aggressive sort of level that is driven through what appears to be devotion and idealistic perspectives, then it can play out in a person's life where they sacrifice a lot of themselves for everybody else in their life. And that's not necessarily a healthy thing to do. I'm not saying that sacrificing at times, for certain people in your life is not a good thing to do. Sometimes it's absolutely necessary. But when it's operating at the level where one is sacrificing all the time and never really considering themselves, but sacrificing for everybody else around them so that everybody else is happy, then that's not a healthy thing. And that can be a Ray number 6 characteristic. So the rulerships are Mars, Neptune, as I said, and the signs are Virgo, Sag, and Pisces. And finally, Ray number 7 is ruled by Uranus, which is no surprise. And it's the technical key phrase for it is ceremonial order, which is hard to kind of understand what that really means. But to put it very simply in plain English, it really describes a person who has an incredible ability and an incredible sense in timing. And we can really expand that on a number of different levels, because that can be someone that's very skillful with very specific techniques that involve timing in some kind of way. It's a person who's very organized, very ordered, in how they live their life. And it's also about basically bringing the mystical into the practical. So number 7 people, in terms of Ray number 7, tend to be very, very, they have this incredible connection with the divine energy or intention, and they have this just this extraordinary ability to bring the divine into the physical and manifest it on that practical level, so that the divine energy is fused through and mastered in some kind of physical way that is basically beneficial, not just to the self, but to humanity and to people around them. It's a beautiful number. All the numbers are. They just operate very differently from a lower stream, and they operate very differently from a higher stream. There's much more to these rays. I've just given you a couple of key words here, right? There's volumes written on this stuff. And Ray number 7 is ruled by Uranus, as I said, and the signs that are connected to Ray 7 are Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. So if you have Aries, Cancer, or Capricorn ascendant, you can look to Uranus as being the esoteric ruler of your ascendant, okay? So why am I sharing this? Quite apart from just knowing what I've just told you, it's also, in my opinion, it's very useful to, when you're looking at transits to your ascendant, for instance, right? When you have big transits to your ascendant, basically there's big changes going on from a soul level. Okay, that was the whole point to this video. That when you have transits to your ascendant, don't just pay attention to the exoteric ruler. Have a look at the esoteric ruler as well, and see what transits are happening with the esoteric ruler. For example, of 2019, for instance, right? When you do this, you may just discover and come to greater sort of understanding and insight of what's going on a soul level for you. What are the intentions of your soul at this point in time? What is the soul trying to work through, heal through, or manifest, or transition through, or release? So when you look at the esoteric ruler to the ascendant, you can get quite a bit of information on this level. I mean, admittedly though, in order to, I think, really connect with this and identify what is actually going on in your life, from this level at least, you would have to be, I would think, the sort of person who's in tune with their soul in some kind of way, right? Because there's no one can measure, no one can say, well, I'm more in touch with my soul than you are. That's a ridiculous statement. Only you know, and only I know what kind of relationship you have with your soul and what kind of relationship I have with my soul. Some people are more in tune, though, from a soul level, and that's evident just simply in the way they live their life, because they're not ego driven, personality driven. You can see that, you can identify that in people, and again, there's no judgment in that. We all have a different path of evolution. So for some people, perhaps for many people, life of the consensus reality, just to bring a little bit of evolutionary astrology, life on that field is where they're at. So it's very much personality driven and motivated, and not much exists beyond that. But when you're a soul who's quite quite evolved, quite conscious, quite sensitive, someone who's quite intuitive, someone who senses things from these much deep inner planes, and you operate a lot from those levels, then esoteric astrology is for you, because it really does tap into that other element of who you are, right? So yeah, when you're looking at transits to your ascendant, if you've got big transits going on, you will be experiencing two different levels. One will be from the exoteric level, which, not that that's not important or any less important, absolutely not. It's absolutely primary. But when you understand what I've just explained with the esoteric astrology and the seven rays and the ascendant being the soul, then you can look to the planetary ruler from an esoteric level of your ascendant and find more meaning of what's happening in your life with regards to your soul's intentions. So if you've got big things happening in your life right now, there might be big things happening to your ascendant from a soul level. Also, just bear in mind that the aspects are going to play a very key role in this, because if you are having a year of trines, then it's the universe giving you a break, right? There's an experience of a very harmonious flow of energy in your life where things are just coming together quite effortlessly, right? And you're not having to sort of feel frustrated or rushed or pushed or challenged or whatever. Not that that's bad either, because that's necessary for growth. But when you have a year where you're just having all these hard aspects to your ascendant, for instance, ascendant being the soul, then there's something very intense shifting and moving and needing to transform from that soul level. But if you're having soft aspects, then you are experiencing just a level of support from the divine on that soul level, and you'll feel it. You'll feel the difference. There's no question about it. So the aspects that planets make to your ascendant are the secondary sort of thing. Not secondary, but you need to understand the difference between aspects, because hard aspects and soft aspects mean very, very different things, as I just explained briefly. So anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to share today. I hope that's useful for you, because maybe that's something you haven't considered previously. Maybe it is, I don't know, but I'm putting it out there just in case, because it is something that I pay attention to in my own life and in readings that I do and things like that. So I decided to do an audio recording today because it's quite late here at night for me, and I didn't really fancy turning on a whole bunch of lights. And so, yeah, hence this is my first audio recording. Hopefully it's clear and it's received in the way that it's intended. Okay, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Much love and blessings, and please feel free to ask any questions below if anything was not clear to you. I'll pop a link below to a particular website that's pretty thorough in the basics of esoteric astrology. It's not difficult to understand, but it's a very good introduction. I have put it underneath other videos, but I'll put it here as well, just in case this is your first time on my channel, or you can't be bothered scrolling through other videos, or it might not be easy to find anyway. So yeah, leave your questions and comments below, and see you guys soon. Bye.